On today's episode of the Real Recovery Podcast, episode number 46, we welcome Terry Leckron-Myers. With nearly 3 decades of sobriety, Terry has turned her journey of resilience into a mission of advocacy. Overcoming a difficult childhood, she found hope in community and now leads through MHAAO, championing peer-driven recovery. Her story reminds us that recovery is about connection, courage, and growth.
Hello, and welcome to the Real Recovery Podcast. I'm Julie, your co-host. On this journey of healing and transformation, together with my co-host Peter, we dive into the heart of recovery, sharing stories that resonate with courage and inspiration.
That's right, Julie. Each episode is a new chapter in this vast narrative of recovery, and we're honored to bring them to you. But keep in mind, the perspectives you'll hear are for informational purposes only and may not reflect the views of the podcast or our partners.
Indeed, while these conversations can be a powerful part of your recovery toolkit, they are not substitute for professional medical advice. We encourage you to seek guidance from your healthcare provider for any treatment-related decisions.
And if you're facing an immediate crisis, or if you just need to talk to someone who understands, don't hesitate to call the Recovery Crisis Line at 503-223-8569. That number is also on our website. Help is available 24/7.
Now let's begin our episode
of recovery, real recovery.
So welcome to the Real Recovery Podcast, Terry. I am so blessed that you're here. I'm really glad. You're one of the few people I know, other than my sponsor, that has so much recovery and a big part of our community.
Yeah, I did a check and I saw the date, April 22nd, 1995. And I was like, wait, 95? Yes. That's a long time.
Yes. That's amazing. 3 decades.
It is almost 3 decades. In April, it'll be 30.
That's exciting.
That means I came around when I was 12.
I know, I was going to say.
And let me tell you, you look good. Okay, big time. I know, because when you get there, it's more than when you have more sober time than other time. It's what a blessing.
Yes.
It really is. So we want to know about you, how you got to recovery, what it was like before. We're excited to hear your story.
Yeah, a lot of times on our show, we hear about peer services or lift mentorship, and understand that that's part of your job.
Yes.
At MHAAO.
Yes.
I got it right.
You did.
I screwed it up a few times.
Yes.
Get those initials in the right order.
Yes.
Yeah, really good to have you here. And
Tara taught me the initials to get it correctly.
Yes.
And not to get it confused with MHAAO.
My husband calls it mahalo because Hawaii, thank you, and Hawaiian is mahalo.
Oh, yeah.
And so it sounds like that. So, yeah, I am very excited to be here, and I'm excited for the projects that you all have been doing how long have you been doing this?
Since last March.
Yes.
We're coming up on this is episode 44?
I think 44, 45, somewhere there. Yeah.
Oh, that's excellent.
So consistently one every week, and then we've had a few extras for good luck.
Yes. Yes. And there have been some people that I wanted to listen to their story. So before I would go to bed at night, I would listen to one podcast a night. And
that's so good to hear.
Yes. And so it was exciting to, first of all, meet you, and then to be asked. I'm very grateful to be asked to be here.
Oh, more than welcome.
Thank you.
Well, I have to tell you, in the recovery community, which is an amazing community within itself, it's so amazing. I see you working hard and doing a lot of things. And that in itself is just astonishing to me. I've been in recovery for years, but not necessarily out and about. Was there with Izzy for the start of GTD, but never knew the depths of 4D or Oregon Recovers. Mm-hmm. We have learned so much. Knew Mike Marshall, but didn't know Oregon Recovers. And then Bo just came along like a blessing. So we've been very blessed with the people we met or the extension of people we knew and then more. Yes. So it's been just amazing.
They always talk about in recovery how you will have a fellowship grow up around you. And one of the things, and all the people that you just mentioned are people that I have seen grow up around me. And in some ways or another, like I was there when they had their first day almost. And so there are some people that I have seen walk in from the first day to people who started their leadership roles in their first positions, and just watching them grow is amazing.
Yeah.
It is. Izzy, I saw him on his first day, and last year when he got the Freedom Award, last year was a rough year, but that was one of the best days of my entire year.
Yes.
Yeah. It
absolutely.
was like, oh my God. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's very exciting. And yeah, I just can't believe how time has flown by so fast, because I came into recovery in 1995. 4/22/95. And that was the first day I came into a meeting that compelled me to keep coming back.
I love it.
And I think that what it was like was the first years of my life. I was born in Hong Kong, and I was brought over here to be a child for another child. The parents who adopted me had already adopted a child, and they wanted a playmate for the second child, or wanted a playmate for the first child, and I was that playmate. But what people don't realize is that when you bring a child over from overseas, there are different sounds. There are rice formula versus other formulas. There's food, sounds. So I was very colicky, and I was not one of those babies that, like a cute puppy, you just love them. I was one of those puppies or babies that was just like arching my back and just was not consolable.
Right.
And at the very beginning of my life, I did not have the feeling of being wanted, needed, or loved. My grandma thought I was possessed by the devil.
Gosh.
So that's the beginning of my life. And then to punish me, they went ahead and would stick me in my room. And the room was a storage room. And so there was a bed and then a lot of boxes. And that's where I stayed. And then when it was time to go to school, I would get up and I would go to school. And I was malnourished. So my first 14 years of my life was that kind of repetitive thing. In fact, there's about 10 years that I don't remember from age. I think the first or the last memory I have is when I was like in second grade. And then from second grade to seventh grade, those years were so repetitive and so much that I don't remember them.
Wow.
I don't remember what happened. But when I got out of that house, there was a time where I came home and I had run away. So I was either locked in my room or I was locked in the backyard. This time I was locked in the backyard. And when I got home, my mom had already driven into the garage and noticed that I wasn't there in the backyard. And so I knew I was going to be up for a big whooping.
Oh, boy.
So I went to the neighbors and I told them that I couldn't go home. And they said, we can't keep you here. We need to call the police. And said, do you want to do that? And I said, no, that's okay. I'll just go home this time.
How old were you then?
I was about 13 and a half.
Wow.
So then when she did beat me that time, I was already on the ground and she was spanking me with a bamboo whip. And I was so close to her ankles that I grabbed them and I bit them. and then that's when she started dancing and things went awry. And the police were called and I was put into juvenile hall under the category of incorrigible because they couldn't control me. And there was a lot of parts of my life that I didn't understand, didn't know. I did find a group of people that were, when I was in junior high, that for the first time I did feel wanted, needed, and loved. And that was I don't know whether you have this in your high school, but if you go in the high school and you go out towards the softball or baseball diamond, there's like a group of people that are hanging out, and they used to call them the burnouts. And they were
stoners.
Yeah, they were smoking little funny cigarettes, and they had these little containers that had these little cigarettes, and they're like, hey, do you want to try this? And this guy would just stick it in his mouth, and he would blow smoke into my mouth. And I was like, and I didn't know how to inhale, and I'd be coughing up a storm and make a mess. But obviously enough got into my system that when I went back to class, my face hurt so bad because I was just smiling and laughing. And then my friends at school were passing around M&Ms, and I would just eat all these M&Ms and double stuffed Oreo cookies.
Oh.
And so that was my first exposure of any kind of mind-altering substances.
But I bet you it felt good to smile.
It did. And my face hurt so bad from smiling. So that was the beginning of my life. And because we have a limited amount of time, I don't want to go too deep into all the other things that went on. But I did get into a great foster home who now is my family.
Love it.
And so they were a family that was so pretty. They were pretty ladies and pretty young ladies. And my dad was handsome. He was a minister. And my mom was going to school for counseling. And it was just the beginning of a new era, a new chapter. But I didn't know how to, so I was isolated socially for so many years that when I got to their home, they were so expressive. The two daughters were so expressive, and they would go, isn't it just beautiful outside? And they would talk about it and describe the blue in the sky and talk about the clouds. And they would look at me like, what do you think? And I was like, yeah. And I didn't have any way I didn't have the adjectives or anything to
social skills to
articulate what I was thinking, what I was feeling.
Right.
All I know is that I was safe.
Yeah.
And that there was a place that fed me 3 square meals a day. They let me have food in my room. They let me make food, microwave food, showed me how to do all of these things in the kitchen. And so I had a good 3 years of trying to catch up socially by having friends and learning how to ride a bicycle and learning how to just socialize as a high school child.
Right.
And so the 3 years went really fast because California Human Services, they do not keep you after 18. So when I was 18 years old, I was told that I was no longer a ward of the court, but that meant that I was going to need to pay rent at the home that I was in. And it was like $250. And I thought, for $250, I can live on my own, and I don't need to have anyone tell me what to do. And so I chose to hang out, and I found a couple of guys that were wanting to have roommates and a roommate, and they already had girlfriends, so they were safe. And so it was like, okay, it was like Three's Company. And I had a good experience with that. And I didn't know what to do. Everybody that I knew that graduated high school, they pretty much decided that it was time to go to college. And that wasn't my path. I didn't know what I would take in college. I didn't know what I would do in college. And I didn't think that school was that exciting. But I did go to college because there was one incentive, and that is that I could get Social Security because my dad, I think, was retired or something like that. And so if you were...
This is your foster
the adopted dad. And so even though I was no longer part of their family, I still was legally under their benefits.
Okay.
And so I was able to get benefits from my dad for going to school, but the benefits did not outweigh the torture of going to school. So I did go to college, and I ran into a lady who she was beautiful, she was tall, she always had a lot of cash, and she was in my psychology class, and I was fascinated by her. And I said, what do you do on the weekends? And she said, I'm an entertainer. And so then I was like, oh, okay. And I said, I want to learn. I want to know what you do, where you go.
Oh my God, Terry, have you ever heard my story?
No.
I was at the city nightclub and there was this lady who had a wad of cash and I wanted that money too. And I said, what do you do? And she said, I work for the escort service. And I thought I was going to go to the ballet and dinner and like I was going to make that money. I
Escort
thought
people around.
Yeah, I really did. And that wasn't the case.
No, it is shocking when they actually tell you that, and that very first time it's, oh, this person's going to cash in a lot of money because it's her first time and blah, blah, blah. I am a terrible person that did not have good instincts. And for some reason, every time I propositioned somebody, it was a police officer. I didn't do well in that field because
I didn't do well either. I ended up in prison.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I would go to jail and because I was propositioning the wrong people. And I did also have a lot of harm done as well because I would get myself in sordid places and find myself beaten up. And I was used to being beaten up by my mom. So being beaten up by a guy was not a big deal. It was like, in fact, I sometimes reflect on how physically being beaten is so much better than being emotionally abused.
Wow.
Because physically being beaten, you could see every day that the scar is going away
and you can heal.
And you can heal. But the emotional scars, you don't know whether you're okay or not. And so I went through that lifestyle for a couple of years and it was disastrous.
Were
And
you using during those
I was drinking
times?
a lot. I did not really use hard drugs until later on. I drank a lot. I did cocaine, but we were just snorting it and we were just drinking drinks at the bar.
Right. Yeah.
What kind of entertainer was she?
She was a good street girl. That's all I know. We were in Oakland, California, walking the streets.
Wow.
I thought maybe she was like a stripper entertainer or something fancy.
No, she didn't do any of that. There was nothing that was sexy or attractive about that. It was like we were in the cold and I was like, this is just not very fun at all. And it was in Oakland, California. So I found myself in Oakland jails. I found myself in all of these different county jails, all the way up to Seattle and came all the way back. And like I said, I was a total failure in that field, but I was a good thief. I could steal anything and making some money as stealing clothes from Nordstrom's and Saks and all
had
those
some
places.
boosting skills.
Yeah, I had some really strong boosting skills. And so I think that as I was navigating life, I just didn't know how. I just had a really rough start of how to live and felt like everything was just wrong because I was with the wrong people. So then I decided to move up to Corvallis and I ran away from the people that had taught me how to be an entertainer. And I found myself safe in Corvallis, and I was about 20 years old, learned how to drink hardcore drinks, learned how to be in the roommates that I had were sorority sisters. My best friend from high school went to Oregon State University. She got married. I met her friends. I was in her wedding. They were in her wedding. They needed a new roommate now because she was moving. And so I went back home, got my U-Haul, drove right back up to Corvallis and decided, here I am. And
I love it.
And that rent was only like $150 for one room. And I was like, anyone can make $150. I can get $150 in cans. and I actually got a job right away working in a jewelry store. And so I started doing this normal life to where I was craving just normal people because it went so fast and so furious. And then I came back into this almost Norman Rockwell storybook where I worked in a clothing store, and the lady who worked in the clothing store had this husband that was really nice, and he had a brother, and their family lived off of this country road, and every Sunday they would have Sunday meals and have canned goods and learned how to quilt, and it was truly Norman Rockwell.
Went from one
Yes.
to the other.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
And then I got married because he asked. I was like, okay, that sounds like a good idea. And then when I realized that it was a terrible idea because it was really boring to be married. And not only that, they were hunters. They went elk hunting, they went fishing, they went deer hunting.
They were real men.
They were real outdoor people. And I was noisy. Hunters do not like you to be crunching around in the leaves. And so I just kept on crunching around in the leaves, and then they would be mad at me. So then I'd show them, look, if you want to know about, noise, I would pick all the pine cones up and I'd smack it up in the trees and throw them like little softballs on the trees and make all this noise. I was sent home. So in the marriages, and I do say marriages because I had a second one 10 years later, both marriages, I didn't drink that much, but I quickly got bored because I was like, if this is all marriages, I just don't want to have anything to do with it. And so I moved through those quickly. And each time I reinvented myself, I learned how to drink better. I learned how to do different kinds of drugs. But I think that the part that brought me into the rooms of recovery was when I was about, I want to say in my 30s, I found ways to do cocaine differently. And it was when we were cooking it and we were smoking it and we were doing all of this stuff. And I learned how to do all that. And actually, cocaine is where it gave me wings to fly until it took away the sky. Because it made me feel like I was on top of the world, and then I would be on the bottom of the world. And drinking was an avenue to have fun, but it introduced me to all of the other gateway friends.
Right.
And then cocaine was so expensive that eventually someone taught me how to be an IV user. And so that was like...
So I didn't like cocaine, and because you had to keep getting high to stay high, and it made me jittery, right?
Yes.
And I too know how to rock it up with some baking soda, which I was good at. People would pay me to do that sometimes. And same meth, I went from snorting it to eating it to using it IV wise. And once you do that, it's crazy.
Yeah, once I put a needle in my arm, it was no return. I then knew what it meant. When I came into recovery, they talked about going to any lengths, and I knew exactly what that meant. And then I also, when we ran out of cocaine, whoever I was with sometimes would shoot me up with heroin because it would just then make me so sick that I would not want anything. So that was the way we kicked cocaine, was by getting me really sick on heroin. And so when I was 25 years old, I hit a physical bottom because my arms could no longer handle all of the needles and all of the veins. But when I was 35, I hit an emotional bottom, which was I no longer could stand where I was in my life. I couldn't stand anything that was going on. There was nothing in my life that felt like it was worth anything. And so I did get a job that I finally decided that was a good job. And I did go back to my foster parents because I left them for about 10 years. And then I came back and was trying to prove to them that I was a good person, and I had a job at a corporation. And so it was my first good professional job. I had that job for 11 years. And I felt like I was worthy to come back to the foster family and be able to be a participant and a contributing family member to the family. And so I just wanted to, so the emotional bottom is that I didn't know how I could come back into the world and do something. I think that when I came into the rooms, I just was so sick and tired of being sick and tired that I was willing to do whatever it takes. And I didn't know what you had to offer, but I knew that what I had to offer wasn't working. And so I came into the rooms when I was 35 years old. I was arrested for the last time in February of 1995. And I think that part of what made me hit the bottom is that there was a police officer that was close to the same age I was. And it's really embarrassing when your own peer, your own age group is all of a sudden telling you what a piece of shit you are. I was used to having adults tell me what a piece of shit I was. And I was used to having people that were bigger than me, but someone that was like my age telling me what a piece of shit I was, I couldn't bear that anymore. And inside my soul, I was sick and tired of being sick and tired that I called my mom and my foster mom, and who I call my mom today. And I said, I don't know what to do. And she was a counselor, and she knew that Alcoholics Anonymous had a way to change people's lives. She didn't know how, but she knew that she saw it in the people that she served. So she flew from Sacramento to Portland and took me to my first NA meeting because I knew I was an addict from the core of my being, but I did not know that I was a alcoholic. So I went to NA, and NA in 1995 had a different culture.
You're killing me because in 1995, I'm on parole and I get mandated in 97. I did my parole, but in 97, I was told to go to 3 meetings a week. And I went to a meeting and someone was high in the meeting and I got scared and I got the hell out. And the next day I went to the Lunch Bunch men's gay meeting and I felt safe.
Yes.
And it was AA. And I just stayed because I was safe.
Yes.
But the NA meeting scared the living shit out of me.
Yes. My first meeting was at the URS Club when it was over on Stark, right by the pizza place. You walked the ramp of the URS Club, and it was lined up with all these bikers. And then you walked into the Recovery Club, and there was like this smoke-filled room. People were playing cards. There was a bar that was there, and I was like, okay, I'll go sit at the bar. So I sat at the bar, and then they looked at me and they said, are you here for the meeting? And I said, yeah. And they said, well, go into that room back there, way back over there to the right. So I went all the way in the back to the right. You opened up this door, this big poof of smoke comes out, and you walk in, and there's all these people that I just did not think I would have anything in common with. And my mom told me, she goes, this fellowship of people will actually change your life and they will become your family.
Right.
And I was looking around the room and I was like, I don't see anything in this room that's going to become my family. I was serious. And then my mom, she was such an energetic person, and she was so excited to be in her first AA meeting ever. And so when they said, is there anyone here for their first meeting ever? And she's just dancing up to the thing and getting a key tag. And then everybody else is looking at me like, we know that you need to go up there. So I walked up there, got my key tag, and then sat down and I listened to the people, and they told their stories about how life was for them right now. And they talked about how things were not perfect, but they were still, there was a guy who had been diagnosed with cancer, and he was still smoking in the rooms. And he says, but I'm here and I'm sober, or I'm clean. And I was like, okay. And I did not fall in love with NA. I didn't fall in love with these people. But one of the things that I did notice is that these people were willing to talk about anything, and they either laughed about it or they cried about it. And I was like, well, that's cool. And so I went to another meeting, and I tried to go to other meetings, and I did go to other NA meetings, but I would try to connect. If you said something in a room and I really liked it, I'd say, Julie, what you said touched me. the people's response would be, okay. And then they would walk away. And I was like, okay, that I'm not the most important person in the room, like they said. And the guys, they would talk to me, but I didn't want to talk to them because I wasn't there for them.
Amen.
And so then I was confused about why everybody thought that this was such a great program. And then my dad, who said he was a counselor as well, he said, I just want to encourage you to go to AA because they're the ones that came out first. They were the first 12-step recovery group. And you might find people that are a little bit more like you there.
Mm-hmm.
Professional, homeowner, all that stuff. Side note, I did buy a house all by myself as a single woman, but I stole all of my money because what I did was I would go to Nordstrom's and I'd steal a dress that was $1,000 and it would be at Clackamas Town Center. Then I would learn how the receipts were coded and I would take it all the way over to Washington Square and I would get a refund of $1,000 on my credit card.
And write the numbers of the person on the back of the tag.
And the dollar amount and everything. And then I would go to the bank and withdraw $1,000. And that's kind of how I got my down payment.
I was the bra bandit because I didn't want them to search me, right? I would get like these beaded $200 bras. I wasn't a $1,000 dress person, and I would take them from Clackamas to downtown and I learned how to write. You have to know what person's code was, that's selling it to you, else they know it's stolen. And so if I got one at downtown, I would bring it to Lloyd Center. If I got it at Lloyd Center, I would go to Clackamas.
Oh my gosh, you
we
guys.
were twins.
Oh my, I've never said that to anyone.
And I would buy something for $10 so that I would see the code. So I understood how the code worked.
Wow.
And then I'd look at the receipt and the dollar amount, and then I would look at what they wrote on the back of the ticket, and then I would do that same thing.
You guys.
No wonder why we're boss bitches. Yeah. Oh my God, that's funny. That is so funny. And it was, oh my God. But anyway.
Okay. So that was how I got my first house. So then when I came into the rooms and I started going to meetings, I went to a noon meeting, a 5 o'clock meeting, a 7 o'clock meeting, because I didn't know what to do with myself. I had no idea. And for some reason, right after the noon meeting, I would have to go to lunch and hang out with everybody. So my employer was... I don't know what they knew, but I was gone for pretty much 2.5 hours each day. And then I would leave in time to go to a 5 o'clock meeting. And the meetings kept me safe. And eventually,
where did you end up going?
So I ended up going from the NA meetings to taking my dad's advice and going to an AA meeting. And when I went to the AA meeting, the very first AA meeting I went to, this guy who was chairing the meeting found out I was new, dragged me over to his friend, Sandra. Sandra was right there and she gave me her phone number and said, call me anytime.
Okay.
And then when I called her, she actually picked up the phone and started talking to me. And so that is where I found people to talk to.
Yeah.
And to connect with and to hear what they had to say about the big book. And I was so confused because the big book was so boring. And I actually would read it and fall asleep. It was a great sedative.
I still read it when I can't get to sleep.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the stories were really good. But it wasn't until I got into a book study did I actually have some way to connect to the book and understand that those steps were imperative, and lines in the book were like, rarely have we seen a person fail. And I was like, maybe I'll be that one person to fail. But then it would say, if you thoroughly follow these steps. And what I found is that in meetings, so you could read the book, and then in meetings people would tell you the practical applications of how they walked through that step.
Right.
And so that's where I started, because when people read how it works, you never knew how it worked. They read it and you're like, I still don't know. You just
And
told
it's
me.
so long to read.
It's like you just told me how it works, but I don't know how it works. There was nothing that said if you do A, B, and C, you will get D. No, it was more like, okay, so step one, how do you do that? My first sponsor would say, step one is you're powerless over people, places, and things, and that your life is unmanageable. Yeah. When you came into the room of NAAA, you were powerless. You already did your step one because you walked into the room.
Right.
And that was your first practical application. And then just going through everyday life, you are going through step one because you're driving down the road and someone's cutting in front of you. That's a step one. Anytime there's a visceral response to the world out there, that's your step one. So that's what they taught me is in the rooms, you told me what was your powerlessness for that day and then how you managed it that day. And then that step two was crazy because I was like, if I could just throw a softball up into the air and see you catch it, I would know that you were a power greater than myself and that I could believe that you can help me. Mm-hmm. But I couldn't see that. And so that was where the faith came in. The faith that if it worked for you and your life has transformed and it worked for you, maybe it'll work for me. And so just having that come to believe that there is something greater than myself. And I think that there was, because I am such a concrete person, tangible, concrete examples. There was a time that I was working on someone's yard, their backyard, and we went to Home Depot and we were stacking these 5-pound bricks onto the flatbed. Mm-hmm. And you can lift 5 pounds at a time, but you got 50 of them later, you have a lot more poundage. And on your own, I could not push it. I had my girlfriend and we pushed it together. So what you can't do by yourself, you can do together. Mm-hmm. And so we did that. And that was like, okay, so anytime I go through life, even today, it's like, if I don't know how to do something and I know that you're an expert on doing something, I'm going to call you and say, hey, what do you think about this idea? Can you help me with this?
That's fantastic.
And so that's exactly where that continues to grow because I know that as the world goes, now I'm 65.
Shut the hell up.
So
I was born in 65. No.
See, I was born in 59.
We're close in age.
So the new powerlessness is I need to reach out to other people who are older than me that know how to walk through this.
Right.
And they're the expert. They are the extra power greater than myself because they've done it before me. And they're going to be able to walk through it with me side by side.
My first sponsor was 76. And I had him for 23 years.
Right. See?
Till he was 99. I wear his ring every day.
See?
So, and he was the first person I trusted out of prison.
Yes.
And he was so mellow. And I didn't believe in God at first. I knew God was there, but I was pissed the fuck off at him for letting all that shit happen to me. It was his fault, not mine. And it took me a minute. But I agree with you 100%. What we cannot do alone, we can do together. If I didn't have the foundation of Alcoholics Anonymous, I would have nothing.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Nothing. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And then every single day, we get a chance to turn it over or not.
Yeah.
Turn it over or not. And have that thing. It's that willingness to do something different. Do something different than I did before. Mm-hmm. And I used to steal all the time. So today I pay for things. And I used to lie and make excuses. And now today I tell the truth. I call you today and I say I'm late because we got too carried away with eating. And you're like, okay, come on over. As opposed to trying to make a big deal out of it and lying out of it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And then when it comes to looking at step 4, you're thinking, no, if God knows everything, why would I need to tell you or write anything out? Mm-hmm. And what I found is that if I face it by writing it out and seeing it on paper and then realizing what is my major fear, frustration, and worry. What causes the most harm? What causes the most harm is when I'm in my own head creating my own story that's not even true.
Mm-hmm.
So if I put it on paper and or I'm telling you what my fear, frustration, and worry is for today, I've done two things. I've then trusted another person to take my information to tell me that and you can mirror it back to me and say, is this what you think it looks like, or is this what it looks like? And then being able to see it on paper, sometimes when you write it, you think, oh, look at that. I did. Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking and feeling. And so then that allows for that transparency and accountability in life, which is not something that I did when I was out there in the world. I would do everything in my power to make sure you didn't know who I was.
Yeah.
And having so much shame behind it. And then 6 and 7 are miracle steps because it showed me what is my reaction to life. Like when I'm in fear, frustration, and worry, first thing I want to do is lie. Okay, so let's be willing not to lie, be willing to get closer to the truth, be willing to do something different. And or another reaction that I personally have is I either lie or I go into hiding or I go shopping or go eating.
Hiding and shopping. Those are good ones for me. I like to stay at my house away from everyone, get everything perfect according to Julie.
Yes.
And then shopping is one of mine.
It's a good escape.
I was just telling
It can be really
Peter
hard on your bank
today,
account. But it's a good
I was just telling Peter today, I need to not act like I make $49.50 an hour because I don't right now. And I need to get a pedicure maybe once a month, not every 2 weeks, like I run the world. And it's very humbling when you want to be bougie and you can't afford to be, but what are you missing and where's that fear coming from?
Absolutely. And what I found over the years is that even if I was bougie for a moment, what I found was I was still with myself. That extra layer of bougie did not make me any better of a person.
Oh.
And I'm still stuck in my own skin. And so I still have the same solution. And I'm thinking, because I have, and I guess that some of it has been to where like I have bought a new car and that new car was fun and shiny for a second, but the shine and fun is over. And so now I have the payments. So then I think, okay, all of the things that I think, if I look at it, I think, is this going to bring me a lot of joy? And generally, objects do not bring me joy.
Me either. I think so. For me, I always say, do I need it or want it? I ask myself that. And I think there's a lot of similarities. I do a lot of, prior to doing the podcast, my community has been very important to me as well. Like Shepherd's Door from the rescue mission. I told Peter I wasn't going to do it this year because I'm not working. And I did it anyway and did it successfully. And I owe that for that credit card that I stole from that client when I was an entrepreneur or whatever. And I'm never going to see that client again. I can't make that right, nor do I want to be honest with you. But I can help some other women. And I've been avidly since I got sober doing that because I knew I did a lot of damage. And for the rest of my life, right, I got to do things the right way. I feel like it's making up, but it also makes me a better person.
But that's the key. What you said is the key to life. When you are serving others is when you are the happiest.
It is.
Because when I buy things, I went and I would sit there and think, oh, another diamond. It's so shiny. It's so pretty. It's a better quality. It's this, that, and the other. It doesn't matter because even when you buy the shiniest thing ever, it doesn't make you feel the inside,
Right. Yeah.
the thrill of who. And so I have people who now have come to I love the gift of experience, the gift of time, the gift of sharing time together.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not how much money we spent. It's not how much we did. It's about being able to just sit there and enjoy each other.
Yeah.
And that is exactly what is. I just think that when we get to the part where it's talking about 8 and 9, I hear so many people in the world say, I'm so sorry. And in today's world, especially in the work that I do, I ask people, I know I hurt you. So let me know, what do I need to change?
Mm-hmm.
Is it my words, my tone, my action? And then that way I can do better and be better. Because I had a person, an HR person, tell me, Terry, I really respect you, but what you said to me and how it was said, I just want you to, I want to put it on your radar that I do not appreciate that. And I wish you would stop. And I said, okay, I won't do that again. 15 minutes later, I had to call him back and say, okay, so I would like to know what I'm going to stop. Am I going to stop my tone or my words? He said, your tone. Your words were fine. So it is really more about how do I understand how I want to be in the world to make it better.
Mm-hmm.
The amended behavior is how do I do better and be better?
I agree with you. And sometimes you can't go back and make an amends. One of the biggest amends you can make is not doing that again to someone else. I have a person, a girl that I didn't date, and I probably should have, right? And I broke this person's heart. And then you get your heart broken. First of all, I believe strongly in what you do to others, it'll be done to you. And if I could say I'm sorry, because she was sober at one time and I got high with her. And to this day, I feel bad about this because could she have stayed sober? I don't believe so. But still, I wish I didn't have a part in that. And never, if you were sober, would I ever, you know what I'm saying? So learning from your mistakes and not repeating them, I think also is a big lesson. And I will tell you, at work recently, I had the biggest growth opportunity that I've ever had. One, I went to IOP at 25 years sober, but I had a person, and we won't talk about that person or whatnot, but I had the opportunity to learn that no matter what happened to me, what I did with that was a reflection of me. And I couldn't be like them because that wasn't me.
Yes.
And that is hard, to switch it around and make sure that you give kindness when you're not giving it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was the biggest opportunity. And I told myself, if you can learn to control your emotions, through this will be award winning. And it truly was. It made me see myself in a better light, that I didn't ever have to deliver anything that, that way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know that there's that saying, we judge ourselves by our intentions and others judge us by our actions.
Wow. Mm-hmm.
And it matters not what they do, it matters what I do.
Exactly.
And so that is where we get to have a changed experience in time. And 8 and 9 is just about a living every single day, living differently than the way I came into the rooms, and being an example of what recovery can look like. Because I work with a lot of people that are anywhere from 1 year to 25 years of recovery. But if I do not make it appealing to continue to keep coming back, then why would people continue to try to grow?
Right.
And so it's my role to do better and be better. Doesn't mean that there's no perfection in any of my activities, but what there is the ability to say that I'm wrong and or I don't know. And what do you think? And coming in with curiosity versus coming in with judgment.
Yeah.
And so many different behaviors that we get to learn and grow over the years. So that's part of it. And then being able to go with 10, 11, 12 is the action steps of how do we grow spiritually? And I know that As people get older, I feel like older adults, we could be so close to another drink because we have more pain that's introduced to us, whether it's our joints, our back. We fall more. We're susceptible to other situations. Just a little simple sore will make it feel like the world's going to blow up in my head. And so I just have had a lot of people who have time go out, not for a drink, but they go out because they want the pain to go away.
Wow.
And so the prescription drugs, anything to make the pain disappear, that's throbbing.
Yeah. And I agree with you. All we have is today. Mm-hmm. And personally, that's why I stay in it. And now, for me, I just added a new meeting, add another chance. Mm-hmm. And these people are fresh. Me and Peter went there, and they're fresh, some of them right off the street. And it makes me be grateful for my shoelaces.
Right.
And not take it for granted. It makes me, we interviewed this one gentleman, and when I went home, never have I said since then, oh, I got to do laundry. It's like I get the opportunity to do laundry in my house. And this person had a shirt and a pair of pants. I have multiples to choose from. And it made me look at life completely differently. And staying close to that keeps me humble. There was a girl 2 weeks ago, and she's looking at a suspended sentence of 58 months. 58 months is 7 years. That's a long time. Yes. And she has to go to treatment. And she came back the next week. She wasn't sober still. She's waiting to get into treatment. But she came back the next week. And I thought, wow, what courage that is. Still out there facing all this and then coming back. And I learned so much. For me, it's easier to stay. I think that's the easier, softer way is to stay, because I don't know that I'd make it back, especially being an IV drug user.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And I think that the person, so I spent a lot of time in jails. I have a commitment to going to take meetings into jail. And there'll be days like this where it's cold and rainy and icky, and I will be pouting my way all the way to the jailhouse and feeling so, oh my God. And then I go in and I sit down with the ladies. And when I leave, I am so grateful that I'm not sleeping in the crunchy beds,
wearing the clothes,
and having the itchy blanket, wearing the cold and being cold, physically cold, and not having the coziness of what we have around us right now, just feeling like home. This is like so wonderful and so
safe.
Yes. Yeah. And so I never take it for granted that I am immune from any of this, because it is not true.
Yeah. Same. Going to prison. I won't even drive fast. I'm being honest, because I don't want to do anything that will send me back. And I commend you for going back in. I told Peter for my 30 years out of prison, I wanted to take a meeting into jail because I've always been scared. I don't want to hear the
clanging.
Yes. No, I didn't want to hear it. But I told myself that not many people stay out of prison 30 years. And then maybe there's a message to be said. And so we filled out the paperwork, but I really commend you, because they do need someone who can tell you can make it.
Yeah, that's what we're doing here, is trying to share stories of others out there who are at very points in their life, some high executives, some just everyday job, but they're showing that it can be done. I was on the street, I was nodding off, and here I am, successful in life. And I also hear from your story too, that even after 30 years of sobriety, you still have to keep it fresh and keep working keep those tools sharpened.
Absolutely.
Every day.
Absolutely.
I see you everywhere.
Yes.
And what a blessing.
Yeah, I've been given the opportunity. It's funny, sometimes people will say, how did you get to the work that you do? And
Tell us.
I did not come into the rooms of recovery to say, okay, one day I'm going to be the director of this. It was really just the fact that when I was working in the corporations and then I came into the rooms in 95. In 1999, I decided I was such a thief of taxpayers because I went to jail and I took up taxpayers' time going to court. I was a tax taker. And so I wanted to learn how to be a tax giver.
Mm.
And so I started working for trying to learn how to be a volunteer for a nonprofit. And so the first nonprofit that I was introduced to was Central City Concern. And at that time in 1999, they had a grant and it was recovery community organizing. And they wanted to organize the recovery community to find out how do we actually help people in recovery get access to care, to get access to what makes a successful treatment episode, how just getting the voices. And because the traditions will tell people what you see here, what you hear here, let it stay here. And there's all these old ideas of anonymity is the spiritual foundation, which I believe, but my grant sponsor said, this is how you stay away from there. You don't say your full name and the recovery group that you're with. You could say, your name is Terry and you are in long-term recovery. Mm-hmm. And I have not had any drugs or alcohol for 29 years. I'm not naming a recovery group. I'm not doing anything to say that I'm for or against or promoting any of this. And so once she clarified that for me, then I started doing a lot of community organizing. The Recovery Association Project was the very first organization that I worked at as a community organizer. And then we lost funding for 1 year. And I started working for Central City Concern in their business enterprises, as well as learning how to be a director of the Employment Access Center. Mm. And I don't know how I got that job. I was in a professional environment. I knew how to act professional, but I wasn't necessarily feeling like I was very professional. The imposter syndrome was huge. Mm-hmm. And then I said, I don't know anything about programs and how to run programs. And the person who believed in me at the time, he was the director of administrative services. He sat there and he says, you know what? A budget is something very easy. You purchased a house. You know how to make your bills. You can do a budget. So I was working with a budget that was $2.1 million. When it came to programs, I learned that when I read the contract, the scope of work, this is what we promised that this is what we would do. Now, how do I collaborate with my staff? So I never came into a position where I said, we're going to do this new project and this is what you're going to do and tell you what to do. I always knew that I didn't know what I didn't know. Mm-hmm. And so every time I had a new project, I would sit down with you and say, this is what we wrote and this is what we were thinking about. What do you think? And so that's how I got into learning how to run programs. So programs and budgets. And then one of the things that he said was, you can work a community like no one else. You know how to be in every room and have everybody feel like they are wanted, needed, and loved. And that's what he said to me. And I didn't know that was a skill set that was desirable. I was just doing what I was taught in the rooms of recovery, and that is to embrace you with love and grace and to always make sure that you knew that you were important. And so that is what he said. He says, this is what will make you a good director. And so then I was working for them for about 7 years. And then I got married. And this person is the love of my life. And it was only due to recovery that I learned how to love, be loved, and learn about how to be of service in my relationship and not expect. Because I used to have relationships where I said, oh, you're going to be a great person to hang out with because you're going to take me to Hawaii every year, or you're going to be able to take me to dinner all the time because I'm a big foodie. So there was all of these things. And it really came down to learning how to just be in the world and how to be better in all things. And then I went into employment services with CODA and helped people we had a research project that showed that people, instead of just finding you a job because the sign down the street said there's a job opening, it was about matching your favorite skills with someone else's and being a matchmaker for the employer and the employee. So that was one of my favorite jobs. And then I learned about peer delivered services in 2000, when I was working for Central City Concern. We actually had a lot of conversations with William White, who was always talking about certified recovery mentors, people that are coming out of treatment. How do we hand them a person that can guide them through the process of taking them to meetings, getting them familiar with?
I just got my CRM.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just being able to walk people through the process, because being in recovery is scary. You walk in and you say the wrong thing at the wrong A. I went to CA, AA, NA, all the A's, and I would make announcements at the wrong time. I'd say, oh, there's a picnic at this A. And they'd say, you're at the wrong A. You're supposed to, and I was breaking traditions all over the place. Right. And so that is how I learned how to be a little bit more humble, and also realize that it's invaluable for people to have someone hold your hand to take them to their first meeting, and to also teach them how to find a sponsor. Yeah. Knowing that you're paid, you can't get them you can't be their sponsor, but you can show them, this is what I used for a sponsor. What are you looking for? Guiding them through that process. And because
hoping that not everyone has to go because the judge told them to.
Yes.
That they can get there another way, you know?
Yeah. And then realizing that there are multiple paths to the top of the mountain, and that it wasn't just all about certified recovery mentors. Then all of a sudden there was peer wellness specialist. There was peer support specialist, and all of these people had a role. And the field in the 24 years has just blown up into where it is. People used to call it like, oh, you're a paid sponsor. But I sponsor people and I understand what a sponsor does, but I also know what the role of a peer support specialist is.
Do you know that's the only reason I took the class? So I too know what it's like to sponsor, and I know what it's like to be a sponsee, because I've only had 2 sponsors in 27 years. I've been very fortunate. But when we started the podcast, I wanted to know. And I learned so much. It's not ethical to be hugging your client. And it's not, which I knew from management anyway, but I learned the difference completely. And also what Peter and I have tried to show on the podcast, that it might be well-briety. It might be smart recovery.
Yes.
It might be
DDA.
Painted. It's not just all my program,
yes,
though that is what has worked and has been my foundation. Some people have to get there a different way, but the most important thing is to get you there.
Yes.
Yeah. And to help you get there.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a young man that I've known for many years. He's 40 years old now, but he came out here from North Dakota to go to NARA, and he has seen his mom and I be in recovery for all these years, and his recovery is well-briety. Mm-hmm. And he was so excited to find well-briety that he wanted to go back to North Dakota and learn how to start meetings there.
I love it.
And so that is where we get to be open-minded to all of the spiritual pathways.
Yes. Yes.
And
yeah, we had Jared on our show.
Yes.
We had Jared on our show, and it was amazing. Then we had Melissa. We followed up with Melissa, and we learned about Two-Spirited. And just like I said, the class, the CRM class,
yes,
that's where I met Jared. And it was the best money I ever spent just to learn.
Mhm.
Oh my God. Yes. Like amazing.
Absolutely.
And a mentor is nothing like a sponsor
Yes.
and vice versa.
Absolutely. And then with people having dual diagnoses and needing to have supports without the stigma, because sometimes people will look at substance use disorder like that's the popular one to have versus mental health and high needs mental health and high acuity. And so it's important to just take the judgment out and just meet the person where they're at and not have the judgment. And sometimes we have the judgment because we're scared that we won't be able to help this person or support this person. And it really comes down to how can I just be with you right now? And sometimes the solution is just to not say anything.
I love that. I still have fear sometimes around active using. It brings me back. And I too have a lot of suppressed memories. I was watching the news and freaked out and called Peter. And I didn't know that I had PSTD complex. I guess some complex version. I just always thought I climbed the corporate ladder. Like I've done all this despite when really it was just another layer to look good and whatnot. I've bloomed later in life. I think for a while it was just enough to be sober and go to meetings. I went to meetings all the time too. Luckily, my shift started at 2, so I could go to the 12 to 1 meeting, grab some lunch on my way to work.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's the part where we don't have to judge anyone's path as far as sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly, as long as we're just moving and just knowing, because I'm one of those people that just am always seeking to know how to do better and be better. And I don't know how to do that if I don't ask you what your perspective of me is, or I'm not open-minded to some feedback about an other person, and just being curious about the world and how we are so that we can be that example.
Right.
And so and I think that's what also energizes me the most, is always being curious and then having fun and learning, oh, that's a very different perspective. And then laughing about it and being able to have like joy. Wow, that's a great idea.
I know people who think that recovery can't be fun. Oh my Lord. The saddest and loneliest I was when I was
one of my favorite phrases. And I did think it was over for Peter because Peter's party, that's how it was for all that time.
And the saddest and loneliest I ever was right before I got arrested. And I had a ton of money, everything I wanted, new car. And it was the loneliest time. No trust. I didn't trust anyone in my whole entire life. Now I have a lot of people I have faith in. I can call.
Yeah, and we have a lot of fun.
Well, I could tell the energy when I met the two of you. I was like, oh my God, those two are just a kick. And it's about being able to put a face and voice. And also there's a balance between the seriousness of what we do and how we do it.
Right.
But there also is the fun, because we insist. If people did not have fun, I would not be here.
Exactly.
And even though I think that maybe my kind of fun is a little sordid, but
I love it.
I don't know that.
I don't know. I noticed you got your picture with the 4 finest men at the Oregon Recovers luncheon.
Did you like that?
Look at, she's got the NFL player here, Bo with the beautiful eyes. Like, I saw you. I was like, no, she didn't get the 4 finest men at the banquet. You looked good doing it, girl. I like that picture, and I was like, and I'm always like, Peter, take a good picture. But I saw that picture, and I was like, you go, girl. I did. I saw that picture instantly, and I just loved it. It was great. And I have to tell you, these events have been amazing. And being part of the recovery community. I've been in part of the recovery community. It was just a lot smaller playing field, but the lunch bunch and in that community, but branching out has been amazing.
The feeling I get is it's being associated with people as to being friends and family.
Yes.
And in our events, all the events we've got, and I've never met half these people, and I feel like I'm at home. You know what I mean? It's very comfortable.
Yes.
Maybe that's because we all share that one thing at heart, even though we're all different people. I was talking with my brother about it because he's on a beginning of his journey. And I was like, at the heart of it, doesn't matter who you'll walk in, you'll see all these people and think nobody out here is like me. That's what I thought. I thought nobody's like me. I'm different from everybody in this room. And over time, I found I was very much like many of the people in the room.
I never heard the Nordstrom thing until today, though. I will tell you. And the fact the code on the back of the ticket.
I didn't know anything about that.
We've never even talked about that. And Peter and I talk about everything. That is just amazing. Yeah, that was for a short time. I was the bar bandit. Just for a very short. Why? I was trying not to use drugs. And I was trying not to go around the people. So I would stay on the bus and go way out to Clackamas Town Center, and then go. And I was staying clean, and I was the bra bandit.
And I just want to say that as I sit here, we might not know each other, but we know each other because there is the sunlight of the Spirit in your eyes. And when I see you guys out there in the community, it's not just boring and stupid and glum. There is an energy force that comes within. And if you look at all the people that we have been with in these different events, it's not because they're dressed pretty.
Right.
They have something in their soul that is gleaming. It's gleaning out of there. And it's just the energy that just comes out. And
I see a lot of passion
Yes.
in the community. And that's what's driven us. And you alluded to it in your story as well, that I didn't feel like I was doing anything in that corporate world or that boring job or whatever it was. And to find something that you have passion for and be able to do it every day. And
that's the crossroad I'm at. I'm getting ready to change up careers, and I don't know what that looks like. I can't tell you. And I'm scared, nonprofit. I'm not walking in there making millions, and I'm scared, but I know that I won't feel bad about what I'm doing.
And that's the part where faith and trust and footwork is important, because I had no idea what I was walking into. When I started volunteering at Central City Concern, I had no idea that the path was going to take me where the path took me. Right. And I never even put it down there in the world that says, one day I'm going to do this. It really was just one foot in front of the other.
And things happen.
And that when something happens, it'll happen and you will know.
Yeah.
And just doing your podcast and doing the things that you do that you love, you will fall into something that you didn't even think that was possible.
Right.
We didn't think this is.
All I wanted was was done with the corporate world. I wanted to do something. I wanted to leave something behind. So do something that was might affect somebody or be noted in that way, and that I'm passionate about. And then I was like, what are my skill sets? So let's see this. I work at TV studios. I know how to do podcasts and stuff. Where's my passion? Right now, it's in the recovery, because that's given me new life, right? It's filled my life. It's changed my life. And so I put those together, and then there comes Julie walking into my world. And we've only known each other for 3-4 years.
Yeah.
But
we were here for Father's Day. And I don't know what we were talking about, but it came to me wanting to change what I was doing. And we were talking about what you want to do. He's like, I want to do a podcast. And I said, me too. And he's, what would we call it? And I was like, Real Recovery. And no, so he went and looked up all the domains and got them all. And literally it happened. I was bringing my sponsor, who's like the dad I've never had. Like, my dad died at 15, and getting one so late in life has been the biggest fucking blessing ever. And it was the best Father's Day I ever had was here.
And my dad had passed, and I also always liked the idea. I had an aunt who always brought everybody, invited everybody, always had the big events at her house. And I was like, God, I want to be that person. Someday I'm
You
going to
are
be
that
that person. I've evolved into that person. Yeah, bringing people in and extended family, the name of our nighttime group. It's so appropriate. Being a gay man, a lot of my friends, made our own family because they were not accepted in their own, and they've been disowned and so forth. And so that extended family was there from that start. And then now it's my AA family.
Same.
My extended
I'm an only
family.
child, and I have an only. And I have my chosen family in AA, which my daughter thinks is the best thing.
Mm-hmm.
She's been in AA since she was 5, so she really gets it. But it's been the most rewarding part.
It harkens back to what you were saying about what we can't do by ourselves, we can do together. That's how we live. And I know I can call anybody.
Yes.
It's a joke. I tell other people, I said, boy, if you ever need to move, go get in an AA group.
Yes.
Man, that will help you for real.
Yes. There was something that you said earlier as far as what you did in your past life and what you wanted to do. It made me think about when I was in the employment field, where I would talk about how I would like to help you find your passion turned into a paycheck.
Yes.
And that is what I hope for you both.
Yeah.
Because this is where you both have a lot of passion. You have a lot of ideas and energy. So let's turn that into a paycheck.
The podcast makes me
I'm
happy.
right there with you.
Let's turn it into a paycheck.
The podcast makes me happy. I actually feel so blessed that I was given this time off. When the company restructured, they're like, we know this is a hard thing to go through. And I had to withhold my smile. The first thing I thought is, oh my God, we're going to be able to do the podcast and go to all these. And we had an event coming up that Friday. We had one coming up that Sunday. And I was supposed to go to work on Monday.
Boom, 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 boom.
And I was like, oh, God is so good.
Yes.
Last year, when by the time you're hearing this, was establishing and realizing that this can be done and being consistent. And I treat it like a job, but it's a fun job.
Yeah.
Next year is that paycheck.
Yes.
We're going to get that paycheck.
Yes,
so,
absolutely.
And then we'll continue to do this for as long as we can. Yeah.
And I'm going to find a job that fulfills my soul.
Mm-hmm.
I've run 2 companies or divisions of, and the first one was really good as far as I felt like it was family. And I could say, I'm going to a meeting. I'm going to pick up my sponsor. And I was really comfortable. COVID and the Sprint and T-Mobile merger ended the 20-year career. So I think it's ready. My 3rd job in 25 years it will be.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I've got the foundation now.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
I think
it's
so
a
too.
chapter that's going to be opened, and you get to it's like the Etch-a-Squitch where you squish it around. You get to redo
Make a new picture.
Yeah.
I think so too. And I think with a happier ending,
Mm-hmm.
I think, like I tell Peter, tomorrow I get hit by a car, right? Today I did the podcast. What a great last day.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's not that I'm taking an escalations call.
Yes.
And from somebody who's entitled or whatnot.
Yes.
It's something of purpose.
Yes.
And that's so much better.
What's on the horizon for you?
I turned 65 last month, and so I actually have a year and 10 months to go before I can do Social Security full. And so I told my boss, Janie Gullickson, I said, I'm going to give you 2 full years. And in that 2 full years, my hope and passion is to grow up new leaders and to continue to grow the organization in a way that allows for people to have the golden thread and the gold standards of peer support. And then maybe after a couple of years, maybe doing some consulting work, or maybe continuing to stay where I'm at and enjoying that. I think as long as I'm having a good time.
Yeah.
It is, like we said, turning our passions into a paycheck, because I will not ever stop working just because of an age. I will stop working or slow down because of energy. Like if I need to slow down.
There's this woman, her name is Pamela Nafikara, and she opened consulting firm, and she's one of the Black women that sit on boards. And let me tell you, I think that has been so golden for her. I can see you on every recovery board, I'm serious, from Oregon Recovers to GTD, making a difference everywhere. I just really can, because you already do.
Yeah.
But I've seen her bring wisdom, and I think you're going to bring the same thing, no matter where you're at.
I've been on the board for Partnership for Safety and Justice for 16 years.
Wow.
So
That's what I mean.
So
Mhm.
it is, I just think that, to your point earlier, and that is, how can we be of maximum service to our communities and allow for the experience that we have not go to waste, but to be able to be passed on and have the legacy passed on, so that people can learn from the mistakes that we've made and or grow what we've learned.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Couldn't agree with you more.
I always like to ask this, and I always seem to get the same answer. So I'm going to see if I get the similar answer. What would you say to someone who's maybe listening, who's maybe not in recovery yet or struggling? What would you say to them?
It is so hard to believe that we can be different, and that the truth is that if we walk forward into the path of non-destruction, it can change our world in a way that is enlightening and rewarding. Because I think that in the past, people spend so much time thinking what they can't do. And if there was a person that was younger and just trying to figure it out, it's okay. We don't have to figure it out. But as long as we're not destroying ourselves before the miracle happens.
I love it. That's very much, to sum it up shortly, everybody seems to come to hope. There's hope, hope for everyone.
Yes.
And in so many words, it's exactly what you said there. There's hope for you out there. And I want to thank you so much for being here, coming to my house.
It's lovely.
Studio H.
It's so lovely. Thank you.
No, I really appreciate it. And I can't wait to see what happens in the future here. We got so much coming up. It's going to be great.
Yes.
Thank you for being on the Real Recovery Podcast. This is Julie.
And Peter.
And with Terry.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you.
That's a wrap on today's episode. Thanks to each and every one of you for lending us your ears and hearts. Your engagement is what fuels our passion and keeps this podcast thriving.
We cherish the moments we share here and hope they resonate with you, whether you're on a daily commute, at the gym, or just taking a moment for yourself.
Make sure to head over to our website at realrecoverypodcast.com. While you're there, subscribe to our newsletter for the latest insights and uplifting stories from our community delivered straight to your inbox.
Click that subscribe button on your favorite podcast player too, so you can keep up with every new episode. It's your support that keeps our conversation alive and meaningful.
And if our stories have touched you, consider using the donate button on our site. Your contributions, no matter the size, are deeply appreciated. They help us continue our mission of sharing hope and healing.
Join us beyond the podcast and follow our journey on social media. Find us on Instagram, Facebook, and on X, formerly known as Twitter. All the links are on our site, so you can stay connected and be a part of the Real Recovery community every day.
Your likes, shares, and comments not only spread the message of recovery, but also remind us that we're all in this together.
So, until we meet again, remember that recovery is a journey, not a destination, and we'll be here to accompany you every step of the way to recovery, real recovery.
Thanks for listening.